And Dan, he suffered his, I think it was his second heart attack in February of 2015. He spent about 37 plus days, right, Dan, at Morristown Medical Center, and he received an LVAD on February the 16th. And then he actually went over to rehab, I think, for another couple of weeks there to regain some mobility. He's currently listed on the organ transplant waiting list, and he actually enjoys talking to other people. He's a very good speaker. I can't wait to hear him speak myself. He recently joined the New Jersey Sharing Network as a volunteer speaker, and he actually visits schools, I think, in his area to raise awareness about heart failure and organ tissue donations as well. He's a father and a husband, and he also owns his own video company, audiovisual, and he enjoys teaching and networking. Dan, which I didn't know, has a secret desire to travel the world and play his ukulele and entertain, engage, and inspire and share with others. Dan Weiniger.
Wow, thank you. And I got to tell you, it's a great honor and privilege to get a chance to speak to you folks today. And the first thing I want to do, and I always like to do this when I get a chance, I've done this one other time, is I like to thank my Heart Success team. Linda, Pam, Dr. Slater, Dr. Goldschmidt, they're all warm, wonderful people, and they're brilliant, and they saved my life. And I always like to thank them for their work. Now, before I get started, I just want to give you a little clue about myself, and this comes from my wife. I might be a little bit crazy, and she likes to tell me that she knows me best. And the reason she says that is because about a year ago, I was not feeling well, I was throwing up, and I was so tired of throwing up, I actually fell asleep on the bathroom floor, which I haven't done in a while. And she eventually called 911. I ended up in the hospital, and I had a heart attack, I had heart failure. They said 80% of my heart was gone. They couldn't bypass me, they couldn't stent me. I had the LVAD operation. I was lifted out of the bed with a hydraulic lift. I had to use a bedpan, and this was like a fear I've had my entire life. I had that thing she saw sticking out of my neck and all the tubes coming out of my body. But when I look back on it, and while I was going through it, I actually think it was quite inspiring. And that's why she thinks I'm crazy, because when I look back at my heart failure and I look at it now, I had a great time when I was in the hospital. I learned a lot about myself, my friends, I met wonderful people, and it really was a fabulous experience. So that's a little bit why people think I'm crazy, because I look at heart failure as actually a wonderful thing that happened in my life. So what I'm going to teach you today, I get the chance to tell you about life with an LVAD, which is a left ventricular assist device. I'm sure you all know. I'm going to give you my 4-3-2. I'm going to give you the 4 things I learned while I was in the hospital, the 3 things I took home and learned, and my 2 overriding concepts that I feel are important when trying to deal with a situation like I was in, which maybe other people out in the room have things they need to deal with also. So the first concept I want to talk about today is the way I survived in the hospital. Not only tried to survive, but I tried to thrive at the hospital, is my level of enthusiasm. Your level of enthusiasm when you're in a situation like that, or many situations in life, is what gives you energy. So if you up your level of enthusiasm, you're going to develop passion and a commitment to get to the next day. We all know when we come home at night sometimes we're exhausted, and somebody will call and say, hey, there's this great thing happening down the street, let's go do this. And all of a sudden you're out off the couch, you're excited, you've got so much energy. And why is that? Because your level of enthusiasm just went up. And now you have the energy to get some things done. So you got to get that level of enthusiasm, not only for that party you want to go to, but for everything you have to do in life. Just raise that level of enthusiasm, you'll get that energy that you need to get from one day to the next. And what that made me think of when I was in the hospital is, a lot of times people in the hospital have fear. And I discovered that fear is future-oriented. When you're sitting in your hospital room and you're lying in bed, like you saw me there, I have nothing to be fearful of. Nothing's really happening to me at that moment. Where the fear comes in is when you think about tomorrow and the next day, and you assign negative consequences to the future. But why do we do that? The future could be just as easily something great. So don't attach your opinions to the next day until it happens. There's no reason to do that. The future can be positive as well as it can be negative. So fear is very future-oriented, and if you think about it, there's really nothing to be fearful of. Okay? And then my second point, my overriding thing, is something that I knew my whole life. I never really thought about it as much as when I was in the hospital. And that's the saying I've heard. I don't know who originally said it, but they say if you look at something differently, the thing you look at changes. And that's true of an object or a concept. I mean, I brought a writing pen here with me. It's a great pen, it's got my picture on it, and I really like it. But if you look at it one way, it's a writing instrument. If you look at it a different way, it could be a weapon. If you look at it another way, it could be a life-saving medical device to open someone's airway. I know that's true because I saw it on MASH. If you see it on MASH, it's got to be true. So if you look at something differently, whether it's a pen or heart failure, what you're looking at changes. And this is true with the LVAD because I've now gone to a few LVAD sites besides the Morristown one, which is very positive, but there's some LVAD sites out there where people are negative. They talk about their LVAD, they say, gee, it looks like I'm carrying a bomb on my shoulder, or people think I'm disabled, or I think I'm disabled, or I think I can't work anymore, and they hate their LVADs. And I can't understand that because I love my LVAD. When I look at this LVAD, I think it's my energy pack. And I think this thing gives me energy both literally and figuratively. And it happens to be, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but besides being a life-saving medical device, it happens to be the greatest place to put your pen. And you guys gave me a name tag today, and I know this is a great device to have your name tag on. So it really is very cool. And I spoke about being a superhero. When I wear this is my battery backup. I now form an X on my chest. I always think of myself as a superhero when I wear this. I'm an X-Men. I'm not sure what the X-Men is. I know it's a superhero, and I enjoy being it. So it all comes from up here. You got to change your attitude. Anything you look at in life can change if you look at it differently. All right. So that's my 2 overriding concepts. Now, the 4 things I learned while I was in the hospital. When you're in the hospital, as you know, it's a lot different than being home, and you kind of lose control of your life. Other people are directing you and what you do every day, and you are faced with a lot of decisions. And when I got to the hospital, the first thing I discovered is you got to make fearless decisions. And what I'm talking about is you got to the hospital and they tell you, we can't bypass you, we can't stent you, there's no miracle drug to send you home. And you're thinking to yourself, see, that's not a very positive list. But then they come in and they tell you about something that they can do for you, and that was the LVAD. And I had to decide that that's the path I wanted to take. And in fact, one of my family members didn't think it was the right path. She desperately wanted to find somebody to bypass me. And she wanted me to travel around the country to other hospitals to find that place that would do that operation for me. She wanted me to go to Cleveland Clinic, which I went to in 2003. And sure, she wanted me to go to the University of Pennsylvania or Columbia Presbyterian. But I had sat down, and with the help of the Heart Success team, I had some videos that I watched on the subject, I read on the internet about the LVAD, I met people with an LVAD, and I had decided in my mind that this was the right direction for me. So even against the feelings of a loved one, I had to make that fearless decision. So I know this is relatable since I've been out of the hospital. Sometimes in life you just got to make your own decision and take that step of faith, whether everyone you know agrees with it or not. So the first thing I learned in the hospital was to be fearless. The next thing I learned was to be bold. If you think back on the great leaders we've had in this country, the greatest ones we remember are the bold leaders, not timid leaders. People that have been timid and that hid in the Oval Office when things got rough are not thought of kindly by history. You want to be a bold person, who has the grit and the moxie to make bold decisions. And when I think back on my experience, I remember trying to live boldly is when I first got to Kessler Rehab after my 37 days in Morristown. The first thing they introduced me to was a wheelchair. And I didn't go to Kessler to learn how to operate a wheelchair. If I had to be in a wheelchair, I understood that, but I didn't want to be there permanently. And they first came to me and they said, Mr. Weiniger, we're sending someone to your room to teach you how to groom yourself in your wheelchair. And I respectfully said, gee, that's a great idea, but can we get some nurses aid? Can we try to stand up in front of the mirror and let's learn how to groom ourselves in front of the mirror? And they were nice enough to accommodate me in that, because I didn't want to be timid. I wanted to be bold. I wanted to take the extra step. And with the advice of the medical people that allowed me to do that, so I got to stand up and learn to groom myself standing up instead of in a wheelchair, which was really upsetting to me because I didn't want to think of myself as somebody that had to take that path. And the other thing I learned, and this is pretty important, is you got to have a passion when you're in the hospital, because when you get to the hospital and everyone you know is very excited. They're excited that you survived the operation and you survived the trauma that you went through when you immediately went to the hospital. So everyone's very happy for you. But 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks from the time you survived the operation, they might still be happy for you, but they've gone on with their own lives. My daughter went on to her music lessons and her homework, and my wife, of course, was working every day. My friends who once were excited for me are now working at their lives. So you're in the hospital still, and it's not as exciting. And every day, if you don't have a passion or a vision of what you want to do when you get out of the hospital, it makes it much harder to survive that day-to-day grind. So I had a vision in my mind in the hospital that I was going to give the very speech I'm giving to you today to my B&I networking group, which I meet on a weekly basis. And I could picture myself, and I could picture them out in the audience and see their faces, and I wrote that speech in my mind every day while I was lying in the hospital. I thought about these 4 factors of being fearless, being bold, being passionate, and the next one is being kind. And I worked that speech out in my mind. I had that vision. It was a very, very strong vision. And I also had another vision. I was going to visit my friend from the networking group on the way home from the hospital. Going to stop by her business on Route 22 and say hello to her and her family. And when my sister did pick me up from Kessler, that's the first thing I did on the way home. I stopped and I saw her. So it's important in life to have visions and to have things in your mind. And then it can't be a wish or a dream, though. It's got to be a goal. And for goals to come true, you got to have action steps. So I developed action steps to do what the medical people told me to do each day so I could get to the ultimate goal, which was to go home and get that speech that I had pictured in my mind. And the last thing I mentioned is that I learned when I was in the hospital is you got to be kind. You're in your own world when you're in the hospital, but you got to realize, and I realized two things about being kind. One is to be kind to the people like you who are out there trying to help you. Day after day, you're in the hospital, and the nurses are telling you what to do. They're telling you you can't stand up on your own. You got to call a nurse to go to the bathroom. You know, these are things you don't want to do, and you start to resent the people that are telling you to do them. You know, why do I want to listen to this lady? I want to get up and I want to stand up. And of course, the first thing I did is I dropped my controller because I forgot I had a controller attached to me. So you got to be kind to the people that are trying to help you. I mean, I spoke earlier about having to use a bedpan, and it's funny that you're close to death, and the thing you're worried about most is, you know, oh my God, I don't want to go to the hospital, because you lose that modesty that you have. You have to do things that you don't want to do. And I remember the first time I got to stand up and go to the bathroom in a urinal, and they stood me up, and I stood up next to my bed. I couldn't walk to the bathroom, and I had a nurse on each side of me, and they're holding me. And they give me a plastic urinal to use. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, what's the social protocol here? Do you make chit-chat with these people, or do you pretend you're not there? I, of course, being me, made chit-chat with them. And so I just got to be kind to these people. These people are doing a remarkable job. The nurses in my floor took such good care of me. And on the nights that were tough and you're sweating and you don't know what's going on and things, you know, you're just uncomfortable. They're there by your side and they're taking care of you. And it's important to be kind to them because they're doing, they're doing wonderful work, and you can grow to resent them because you want to make progress faster than is humanly possible. And the other aspect about being kind is to remember the people around you. I don't, when you're in that room, you don't see the people in the rooms next to you until you get a chance to get up and walk around a little bit. And when I was at Kessler particularly, they had a wing of people that were suffering brain trauma and were much more in worse conditions than me. And you don't realize it when you're sitting at the table eating with these folks, what each person is going through in their lives. And each person has a struggle, and each person is trying to get better and do the best they can to get healthy again. So those are the four things I learned when I was in the hospital. You gotta be fearless, you gotta be bold, you gotta have a passion, and you gotta be kind. And those have helped me not only get through my stay at the hospital and not only just survive it, but try to thrive at it. But they've helped me since I've come home. I've tried to use those four aspects to make decisions now in my everyday life. And one gift I got, and these are the three things I learned since I've been home. Someone gave me this book, and it's called The Bucket List. These are fun books, and they tell you things you should do, I guess, before you kick the bucket. And I thought to myself, gee, I don't want any bucket list. I don't want to wait for anything anymore. I don't want to postpone joy in any way. If I want to learn how to give a talk, I'm going to get up and give a talk. If I want to write a book, which I'm trying to do, I'm going to write a book. If I buy a dishwasher, I'm going to use it. I mean, my wife just bought a dishwasher. We're not allowed to use it. It's beautiful, it's silver, but we can't go near it. And I don't understand that kind of thinking anymore. I don't want to postpone anything in my life. I want to do it now. I don't want a bucket list, because you may never get a chance to go through that list. And you want to do what you want to do today. You can't wait for conditions to be perfect, because they never will be. So you just got to take that step and do what makes you happy at the moment. And the second thing I learned since going home is you got to leave your ego at the door. A lot of times in life, and I know in my relationships with my wife and my child, is you want to be right. I mean, a lot of times something happens in the family dynamic and your ego takes over and you choose to be right. And I think it's more important now to choose to be kind than to be right. You're not going to convince the person that you're having an argument with that you're right and they're wrong. It doesn't. It's all in your ego. It's what you want. It's not good for the person or the relationship. So I really think I've tried to, and I'm not perfect, and my wife will tell you that if you were here, but it's more important to be kind than to be right, and also choose to be happy. I think happiness is a choice. We can choose to be miserable, or we can choose to have that high level of enthusiasm in our life. And I think that's important, because the opposite is to be miserable, and that's a choice too. And I choose to be happy. So I don't like to postpone anymore. I like to choose to be kind instead of be right, which is a hard thing to do. We all want to be right. We all want to, through the power of our charisma or our argument, convince people that we have the right point of view. But try being kind. You'll see a big change in your life. And the third thing I learned since coming home from the hospital is just the most important thing in my life is just to be a good father and to be a good husband and be a good friend. So this has been my life with the LVAD. I don't know if I've taken 30 minutes they've given me. I have a tendency to talk fast, but I would be open to answer any questions. If anyone wants to ask a question about my experience, feel free. Okay, we got a question over here. I have. She asked if I travel with my LVAD. I haven't had the opportunity yet, but I have no problem with the idea of traveling. I get up at 5 o'clock most mornings and I work for a networking group. I'm a director consultant. I go around the state helping people network. I run my video services business, and I do everything I've done before with my LVAD. And so I'm looking forward to traveling. Right now, being on the transplant list, I'm not supposed to go 3 hours from North Beth Israel, so I try to stay within that requirement because I don't want to lose the opportunity for a new heart. Anybody else have a question? Sure.
You're awesome.
Thank you. I really, like I said, it's been a great experience, and people don't understand me when I say that. My wife thinks I'm crazy. But not only has I met so many great people, but I got to tell you, I don't recommend this heart failure for everybody, but if you want to increase your likes on your Facebook page, just send a picture from the intensive care unit. You'll get 300 likes before you put the phone down. And I also, and again, I don't recommend this for weight loss, but I dropped about 20 pounds when I was in the hospital, and I never looked better. But so there's always a positive thing. There's always something you can learn in life with any situation. Just take a moment and think about what you can learn from it instead of getting angry about it. And anger really has no purpose and doesn't help you do anything. So, any other questions? Sure, at the back.
Because you seem so comfortable with the LVAD, does the thought of getting a heart kind of make you weary or?
It does. I struggle with that a lot, and Linda can tell you that. I didn't know what the best route to do is. Right now, I just got on the list to get on the list. I'm perfectly happy with my LVAD, and I'm functioning fine. People have told me, and I don't know if it's true or not, but it's like a spare tire in your car. It works fine, but eventually you want to get the original tire fixed and put it back on. So that's kind of the attitude I'm taking, but I'm in no rush to get a heart. And I'm also fascinated by the science that you guys do. And by the time I get a heart, there may be other things that have come along that would make it not necessary. So who knows what the future holds as far as with the work that you guys do. Sure.
What's been your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge, I think Linda will attest to this, is for me to be quiet when my wife's changing my dresser. I like to, it's again that thing about being, instead of being right, I like to be right. And I like to tell her what she's doing wrong. But as I said, I'm a work in progress, and I'm trying to get better. Anybody else have a question? All right, thank you guys very much.